Nothing happens to anyone that they are not formed by nature to bear. These words from Marcus Aurelius remind us that adversity isn't something to fear. It's something we're built to handle. But how often do we actually feel prepared for life's challenges? In a world filled with uncertainty, stress, and constant change, the ancient wisdom of Stoicism offers a timeless blueprint for resilience and growth. It's not about avoiding obstacles, it's about transforming how we see and respond to them. Today, we're diving into 40 powerful Stoic mindset shifts that can help you overcome any obstacle, no matter how daunting it seems. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're practical tools rooted in centuries of philosophy, designed to help you navigate modern life with clarity, courage, and calm. From reframing setbacks to embracing discomfort, each mindset shift is a step toward becoming the kind of person who not only endures hardships but thrives because of them. By the end of this video, you'll have a toolkit of principles and practices that you can apply immediately to your own life. Whether you're facing a personal struggle, a professional challenge, or simply seeking a deeper sense of peace, these Stoic insights will help you build the mental strength to rise above it all. So let's begin this journey together, because the obstacles you face today might just be the stepping stones to a stronger, wiser version of yourself. Let's begin with one of the most foundational Stoic mindset shifts, focusing on what you can control. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies the dichotomy of control, a principle that teaches us to clearly separate what is within our power from what is not. Think of it as a mental filter helping us focus our energy on the things we can influence while letting go of the rest. As Epictetus famously said, some things are within our power while others are not. It's a simple yet profound idea, but applying it can be life-changing. Here's how it works. Imagine you're stuck in traffic. You didn't choose the congestion, and there's nothing you can do to make the cars ahead of you move faster. But what you can control is how you respond to the situation. Will you let frustration take over, or will you use the time to listen to a podcast, reflect on your day, or simply practice patience? The traffic is external, it's outside your control, but your reaction, that's entirely yours to shape. This principle applies to almost every aspect of life. Take workplace stress, for example. You can't control a demanding boss or a heavy workload, but you can control how you approach your tasks, set boundaries, or even your mindset about the challenges you face. By focusing on what's within your power, you reclaim agency over your life, even in the most chaotic situations. So, here's a question to reflect on. What situations in your life are you trying to control that are beyond your power? Recognizing these can be the first step toward greater peace and resilience. How often do you catch yourself replaying past mistakes or anxiously planning for a future that hasn't even arrived? It's easy to get stuck in this cycle, but Stoicism offers a powerful antidote: the practice of embracing the present moment. The Stoics believed that the only time we truly have is right now. The past is gone and the future is uncertain. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, often wrote about the fleeting nature of time, reminding us that life is short and that every moment is precious. He said, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Think about it: how much of your day is spent distracted, scrolling through your phone, or mentally checked out? Stoicism challenges us to reclaim those moments by focusing on what's in front of us. A practical way to do this is by practicing mindfulness in small, everyday tasks. For example, when you're drinking your morning coffee, really taste it. Notice the warmth, the aroma, the way it feels in your hands. Or when you're working on a project, give it your full attention instead of letting your mind wander to what's next on your to-do list. By doing this, you're not just completing tasks, you're training your mind to live in the here and now. So, let's reflect. What can you do today to fully engage with the present moment? Maybe it's turning off notifications while you're spending time with loved ones, or taking a few deep breaths before starting a new task. The key is to start small and build the habit of presence. When you focus on the present, you'll find that life becomes richer, more meaningful, and far less overwhelming. After all, the present is the only moment you truly have control over. Why not make the most of it? Life is fleeting and nothing lasts forever, a truth that Stoics not only acknowledged but embraced wholeheartedly. This brings us to the third mindset shift, accepting impermanence. At the heart of this idea is the ancient Stoic practice of memento mori, which translates to remember you must die. Far from being morbid, this concept was a powerful tool for cultivating gratitude, resilience, and a deeper appreciation for the present moment. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." His words remind us that change is inevitable, and clinging to what we cannot control only leads to suffering. Imagine the Stoics of ancient Rome who would regularly reflect on their own mortality. They didn't do this to dwell on fear or despair, but to sharpen their focus on what truly mattered. For example, Roman generals would keep a slave by their side during victory parades, whose sole job was to whisper in their ear, "Remember, you are mortal." This wasn't meant to diminish their achievements, but to ground them in humility and remind them that even the greatest triumphs are temporary. It's a practice that can still resonate with us today. So let's pause for a moment and ask ourselves, how would our perspective shift if we fully embraced the transient nature of life? What if we stopped taking the people we love, the opportunities we have, and even the challenges we face for granted? When we accept impermanence, we stop resisting the natural flow of life. Instead of fearing loss, we learn to cherish what we have while we have it. And when change inevitably comes, we're better equipped to adapt and grow from it. This mindset doesn't just help us cope with loss, it transforms how we live. By recognizing that everything is temporary, we're freed from the weight of unrealistic expectations. We become more present, more grateful, and more resilient. And perhaps most importantly, we start to see obstacles not as permanent roadblocks, but as fleeting moments in the grand scheme of our lives. Resilience isn't about dodging hardship, it's about facing it head-on with grace and strength. The Stoics believed that challenges weren't obstacles to avoid, but opportunities to grow. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Think about that for a moment. Adversity, in the Stoic view, is like a forge. It shapes us, strengthens us, and prepares us for what's to come. Let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine someone who loses their job unexpectedly. At first, it feels like a crushing blow, but instead of letting despair take over, they use the situation as a chance to reassess their goals, learn new skills, and ultimately land a role that aligns more closely with their passions. That's resilience in action. It's not about pretending the struggle doesn't hurt, it's about channeling that pain into progress. So, here's a question for you. What challenges have you faced that, looking back, actually made you stronger? Maybe it was a failure, a loss, or a moment of self-doubt. Whatever it was, those experiences likely taught you something invaluable about your own capacity to endure and adapt. Resilience isn't something we're born with, it's something we build, one challenge at a time. And the Stoics remind us that every hardship is a chance to cultivate that inner strength. What would happen if you willingly stepped out of your comfort zone? The Stoics believed that embracing discomfort wasn't just a test of endurance, it was a way to build mental resilience and prepare yourself for life's inevitable challenges. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, once said, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" This practice of voluntary discomfort teaches us to face hardship with calm and clarity, rather than fear or resistance. It's not about seeking suffering for its own sake, but about training your mind to remain steady when life throws its hardest punches. So, how can you start practicing this today? It could be as simple as skipping a meal to experience hunger, taking a cold shower to push through discomfort, or even leaving your phone at home for a day to break the habit of constant distraction. These small acts of self-discipline might feel uncomfortable at first, but they're powerful tools for building mental toughness. Over time, you'll find that what once felt unbearable becomes manageable, even empowering. The key is to start small and stay consistent. Ask yourself, what's one small discomfort you can embrace today to strengthen your mindset? By willingly stepping into these challenges, you're not just preparing for adversity, you're proving to yourself that you're capable of thriving no matter what life brings. Every obstacle is a chance to grow. This is one of the most empowering mindset shifts Stoicism offers, seeing challenges not as roadblocks but as invitations to evolve. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflected on this idea, writing that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. It's a profound reminder that the very things we perceive as setbacks can be the catalysts for our growth. Think about it this way: when something doesn't go as planned, it forces us to adapt, to think creatively, and to develop skills we might not have otherwise. Take, for example, a career setback like losing a job or being passed over for a promotion. In the moment, it feels devastating, but what if that rejection pushes you to explore a new industry, start your own business, or develop a skill you've been putting off? Suddenly, what seemed like a loss transforms into an opportunity to build something even better. This reframing isn't about ignoring the difficulty of the situation. It's about shifting your perspective to ask, what can I learn from this? How can I use this to move forward? When you start to see obstacles as opportunities, you take back control. You stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming the architect of your own growth. So, what's one challenge you're facing right now? How might you reframe it as an opportunity? Whether it's a personal struggle, a professional hurdle, or even a global crisis, there's always a way to find the silver lining. Because in the Stoic view, every obstacle is a teacher, and every difficulty is a doorway to becoming stronger, wiser, and more resilient. How much of your happiness depends on what others think of you? It's a question worth pausing on, because if we're honest, many of us tie our sense of worth to the opinions of others, whether it's a boss, a friend, or even strangers on the internet. The Stoics, however, had a very different perspective. They believed that true contentment comes from within, not from the fleeting praise or criticism of others. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it bluntly: if you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters. In other words, stop worrying about how you're perceived. What matters is your own integrity, your own growth, and your own standards for living a good life. Think about how much energy we waste trying to impress people or seeking validation. Social media, for example, can feel like a never-ending race for likes, comments, and followers. But here's the truth: no amount of external approval will ever fill the void if you don't already value yourself. The Stoics remind us that external validation is unreliable, it's outside of our control, and chasing it only leads to frustration and insecurity. Instead, focus on what you can control: your thoughts, your actions, and your character. So, what steps can you take to rely less on external validation? Start by asking yourself why you care so much about others' opinions in the first place. Is it fear of rejection, a desire to fit in? Once you identify the root, challenge it. Remind yourself that your worth isn't determined by someone else's approval. Practice doing things simply because they align with your values, not because you're seeking recognition. Over time, you'll find that the less you depend on external validation, the freer and more confident you become. After all, the only opinion that truly matters is your own. Gratitude is the antidote to dissatisfaction. It's a simple truth, but one that carries profound weight, especially when viewed through the lens of Stoicism. The Stoics believed that gratitude wasn't just a fleeting emotion or a polite gesture. It was a powerful practice, a mindset shift that could transform how we experience life. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, often wrote about the importance of appreciating what we already have. In his letters, he reminded us that true wealth isn't measured by what we lack, but by our ability to recognize and cherish what's already in our possession. Think about it. How often do we focus on what's missing or what we think we need? The Stoics would argue that this habit of yearning for more is the root of much of our unhappiness. But gratitude flips the script. It redirects our attention to the abundance that already exists in our lives, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. It's not about denying ambition or ignoring challenges. It's about grounding ourselves in the present moment and finding contentment there. So how can we practice gratitude in a way that aligns with Stoic principles? One practical exercise is keeping a gratitude journal. Each day, take a few moments to write down 3 things you're grateful for. It could be something as simple as a warm cup of coffee in the morning, a kind word from a friend, or even the opportunity to learn from a difficult experience. The act of writing it down helps solidify these moments in your mind, training your brain to notice and appreciate the good, even in the midst of chaos. Here's a question to reflect on. What 3 things are you grateful for today? Pause for a moment and let that question sink in. It's not just about listing them, it's about truly feeling the weight of those blessings. Gratitude, when practiced daily, becomes a habit, a lens through which you see the world. And over time, that lens can shift your entire perspective, helping you find peace and fulfillment even when life feels uncertain. How often do you find yourself stressing over results you can't control? It's a common human tendency to fixate on outcomes, whether it's acing a job interview, landing a promotion, or even something as simple as getting a positive response to a message you sent. But here's the thing, outcomes are often beyond our control. What we can control, however, is the effort we put into the process. This is where Stoic philosophy offers a powerful shift in perspective, detaching from outcomes and focusing on what's truly within your power. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it simply, some things are within our control and others are not. He urged us to direct our energy toward our actions, attitudes, and intentions, the things we can influence rather than wasting it on worrying about external results. This doesn't mean you stop caring about your goals. It means you stop letting the uncontrollable dictate your peace of mind. Let's take a practical example: preparing for a job interview. You can spend hours researching the company, practicing your answers, and polishing your resume. These are all within your control. But once you walk into that interview room, you can't control whether the hiring manager likes your personality, whether another candidate has more experience, or if the company decides to restructure the role entirely. The Stoic approach would be to focus on doing your absolute best in the preparation and execution, then letting go of the outcome. If you've given it your all, that's where your satisfaction lies, not in the uncontrollable result. So, how can you start shifting your focus from outcomes to the process? Begin by asking yourself, what's one area of your life where you're overly attached to a specific result? Maybe it's a project at work, a relationship, or even a personal goal. Now, think about what's truly within your control in that situation. Are you putting your best effort into the process? Are you approaching it with the right mindset? When you start redirecting your energy toward what you can influence, you'll find that the weight of uncontrollable outcomes begins to lift. This shift doesn't just reduce stress, it empowers you to act with clarity and purpose, no matter what life throws your way. Emotions are not the problem, our attachment to them is. This is the cornerstone of emotional equanimity, a mindset shift that allows us to navigate life's ups and downs with grace and clarity. The Stoics didn't advocate for suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. Instead, they taught us to observe them without letting them take control. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, often reminded himself that emotions are like waves, they rise, they fall, but they don't define who we are unless we let them. In his writings, he emphasized the importance of pausing before reacting, giving yourself the space to choose how you respond rather than being swept away by the intensity of the moment. Think about a time when you felt anger bubbling up during a conflict. Maybe it was during an argument with a coworker or a heated discussion with a loved one. In that moment, the Stoic approach isn't to deny the anger, but to acknowledge it without letting it dictate your actions. Ask yourself, what's really at stake here? Is this emotion serving me, or is it clouding my judgment? By stepping back, even for a moment, you create the opportunity to respond with intention rather than impulse. This is emotional equanimity in action, maintaining your inner balance even when the world around you feels chaotic. So how can you cultivate this mindset in your own life? Start by practicing awareness. Notice when emotions arise, and instead of immediately reacting, take a breath. Reflect on whether your response aligns with your values and goals. Over time, this practice can help you build resilience and emotional clarity, allowing you to face challenges with a steadier hand and a calmer mind. The goal isn't to eliminate emotions, but to develop a healthier relationship with them, one where you remain in the driver's seat no matter what storms come your way. How much of what you own or do truly adds value to your life? This is a question the Stoics asked themselves centuries ago, and it's just as relevant today. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This idea cuts to the heart of simplicity, a core Stoic principle. It's not about living with less for the sake of less. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of excess so you can focus on what truly matters. Think about your own life for a moment. How many possessions, commitments, or habits are you holding onto that don't serve you? Clutter, whether physical, mental, or emotional, can drain your energy and cloud your judgment. The Stoics believed that by simplifying, we create space for clarity, purpose, and peace. Here's a practical step. Start with your physical space. Take a look around your home or workspace. What items do you keep out of habit, guilt, or fear of letting go? Decluttering isn't just about tidying up. It's a deliberate act of choosing what deserves your attention. When you remove the unnecessary, you make room for the essential, but simplicity goes beyond material things. It's also about how you spend your time and energy. Are you saying yes to things that drain you or distract you from your goals? The Stoics remind us that every choice has a cost, not just in time or money, but in focus and peace of mind. So ask yourself, what can you let go of to create more mental clarity? Maybe it's a possession, a commitment, or even a mindset that no longer serves you. By embracing simplicity, you're not losing anything of value, you're gaining freedom. And in that freedom, you'll find the space to live more intentionally, more deeply, and more authentically. Virtue is the highest good in Stoicism. It's not wealth, fame, or even comfort that defines a meaningful life. It's the quality of your character. The Stoics believed that true success lies in living with moral integrity, regardless of the external outcomes. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it plainly. The essence of philosophy is that a person should live so that their happiness depends as little as possible on external things. In other words, your worth isn't tied to what happens to you, but how you respond to it through wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. Think about it this way. When faced with a tough decision, the Stoic approach isn't about choosing the easiest path or the one that benefits you the most. It's about asking, what's the right thing to do? Imagine you're in a situation where telling the truth could cost you something: a job, a relationship, or even your reputation. A Stoic would argue that honesty, even when it's hard, aligns with virtue. It might not make life easier in the moment, but it builds something far more valuable, a life of integrity. So, how can you apply this mindset today? Start by reflecting on your own values. What principles guide your decisions? Are you living in a way that reflects those principles, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable? Every choice you make is an opportunity to practice virtue. Whether it's standing up for what's right, showing kindness when it's easier to be indifferent, or staying true to your word. The beauty of Stoicism is that it reminds us, no matter what's happening around us, we always have the power to choose virtue. And that choice, more than anything else, is what shapes a life well lived. When was the last time you truly paused to reflect on your actions and thoughts? Not just a quick glance at the day's events, but a deep, honest examination of how you've shown up in the world. The Stoics believed that self-reflection wasn't just a nice-to-have habit, it was essential to living a meaningful life. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. This power begins with self-awareness, and self-awareness begins with reflection. The Stoic practice of journaling is one of the most effective tools for cultivating this awareness. It's not about writing long, elaborate entries, it's about creating a space to examine your day with clarity and honesty. Each night, take a few moments to review your actions, your reactions, and the choices you made. Ask yourself, did I act in alignment with my values today? Did I respond to challenges with patience and wisdom, or did I let my emotions take control? This nightly review isn't about judgment, it's about learning. It's about identifying patterns, celebrating progress, and recognizing areas where you can grow. Here's a simple exercise to get started. Before you go to bed, write down 3 things you learned from the day. Maybe it's a lesson in patience from a frustrating moment, or a reminder of gratitude from a small act of kindness. The key is to focus on what the experience taught you, not just what happened. This practice helps you distill the day's chaos into meaningful insights, turning every experience, good or bad, into an opportunity for growth. Reflection isn't just about looking back, it's about preparing for the future. By understanding your patterns and tendencies, you can approach tomorrow with greater intention and clarity. So tonight, take a moment to ask yourself, what lessons can I carry forward from today? How can I use these lessons to become a better version of myself tomorrow? This is where the real power of Stoicism lies, not in controlling the world around you, but in mastering the world within you. Resistance to reality only causes suffering. Think about it for a moment. How much energy do we waste fighting against things we can't control? The Stoics understood this deeply, and one of their most powerful mindset shifts is learning to accept what you cannot change. This isn't about giving up or being passive. It's about recognizing where your power ends and where peace begins. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply, some things are within our control and some things are not. Trying to control the uncontrollable is like trying to stop the rain by shouting at the sky. It's exhausting and it changes nothing. Imagine a natural disaster, a hurricane, for example. No amount of anger, denial, or resistance can stop the storm. What you can control is how you prepare, how you respond, and how you rebuild afterward. This is the essence of acceptance, focusing your energy on what you can influence and letting go of what you can't. It's not easy, but it's liberating. When you stop fighting reality, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering. Now, think about your own life. What situations are you resisting right now? Maybe it's a job you can't stand but feel stuck in, or a relationship that's no longer serving you. Perhaps it's something as simple as getting stuck in traffic on your way to an important meeting. Whatever it is, ask yourself, can I change this? If the answer is no, then acceptance is your path to peace. It doesn't mean you have to like it, it just means you stop letting it drain your energy. When you align yourself with reality, you open the door to resilience, creativity, and even joy. So, what's one thing in your life right now that requires greater acceptance? Take a moment to reflect and then take the first step toward letting go. How often do you catch yourself frustrated because things aren't moving as quickly as you'd like? That impatience can feel overwhelming, especially in a world that constantly pushes us to hurry, achieve, and compete. But here's the Stoic perspective: patience isn't just a virtue, it's a superpower. The Stoics believed that true strength lies in the ability to wait, to endure, and to trust the process even when the results aren't immediate. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "Time heals what reason cannot." In other words, some things simply require the passage of time, and fighting against that only leads to unnecessary suffering. Think about learning a new skill, like playing an instrument or mastering a language. At first, progress feels agonizingly slow. You might practice for weeks and still feel like you're not getting anywhere. But over time, with consistent effort, those small, seemingly insignificant steps add up. The key is to focus on the process, not just the outcome. Stoicism teaches us to appreciate the journey, to find value in the act of doing, rather than fixating on the finish line. This shift in mindset doesn't just make the waiting bearable, it transforms it into something meaningful. So, how can you start cultivating patience in your daily life? One way is to set realistic expectations. Understand that growth and success take time, and setbacks are a natural part of the process. Another is to practice mindfulness, staying present in the moment rather than constantly worrying about the future. And finally, remind yourself that every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. Patience isn't about passively waiting, it's about actively trusting that your efforts will pay off in the long run. What's one area of your life where you could use a little more patience today? Stoics believed effort trumps natural ability. It's not about being born with talent or innate skill, it's about what you do with what you have. Think about it, talent might give someone a head start, but without effort, it's like having a car with no fuel. It won't take you anywhere. The Stoics, especially Epictetus, emphasized the power of perseverance. He taught that consistent effort is the key to mastery, no matter the field. Whether you're learning a new skill, building a business, or improving your relationships, it's the daily grind that shapes your success. Consider the story of an athlete who wasn't the fastest or strongest on their team, but they showed up every single day, pushing themselves beyond their limits. Over time, their effort paid off, and they surpassed those who relied solely on their natural gifts. That's the Stoic mindset in action, focusing on what you can control, your effort, rather than what's out of your hands, like natural talent. So let's turn this inward. What areas of your life could use more consistent effort? Maybe it's a project you've been putting off, a skill you've wanted to develop, or even a habit you've struggled to maintain. The Stoics would remind you, progress isn't about perfection, it's about showing up day after day and giving it your best. Effort is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. And that's something entirely within your control. How often do you pause to extend understanding, even to those who wrong you? This is where the Stoic mindset truly shines, not in hardening yourself against the world, but in softening your heart to see the humanity in others. Stoicism teaches us that every person acts according to their own understanding of what's right, even when their actions seem hurtful or misguided. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil." What he's really saying is this: people act poorly not because they're inherently bad, but because they're struggling with their own limitations. Think about a time when you felt wronged, maybe by a coworker who took credit for your idea or a friend who let you down. It's easy to react with anger or resentment. But what if instead you chose to see their actions through the lens of compassion? Perhaps that coworker was acting out of insecurity, or your friend was dealing with a personal crisis they couldn't share. When we take a moment to consider why someone behaves a certain way, it doesn't excuse their actions, but it does help us respond with empathy rather than hostility. Here's a practical way to apply this. Next time you're in a conflict, try asking yourself, what might this person be going through that I don't see? This simple shift in perspective can transform how you approach relationships, whether it's with a colleague, a family member, or even a stranger. By practicing compassion, you're not just making their life easier, you're freeing yourself from the weight of judgment and anger. So, how can you bring more compassion into your daily interactions? Start small. Maybe it's listening more intently when someone shares their struggles, or offering a kind word when they least expect it. Over time, these small acts of understanding can ripple outward, creating deeper connections and a more peaceful mindset. Compassion isn't about letting others off the hook. It's about choosing to see the shared humanity in everyone, even when it's hard. And that, in itself, is a powerful act of strength. Life is unpredictable, and that's okay. In fact, it's one of the few truths we can all agree on. No matter how much we plan, how careful we are, or how much control we think we have, life has a way of throwing curveballs. And here's the thing: Stoicism doesn't just acknowledge this reality, it teaches us to embrace it. The Stoics believed that uncertainty isn't something to fear or resist. Instead, it's an opportunity to practice resilience, adaptability, and inner peace. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." At first glance, that might sound bleak, but it's actually a call to accept life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Think about it. When you're starting a new venture, whether it's a business, a career change, or even a relationship, you're stepping into the unknown. You don't have all the answers, and that's normal. But instead of letting that uncertainty paralyze you, what if you saw it as a chance to grow? The Stoics would argue that by leaning into the unknown, you're training yourself to stay calm, focused, and resourceful no matter what happens. It's like building a mental muscle that allows you to thrive in chaos rather than crumble under it. So, how can you find peace in the face of uncertainty? Start by reframing your perspective. Instead of asking, "What if something goes wrong?" ask, "What can I learn from this experience?" Shift your focus from what you can't control to what you can: your mindset, your preparation, and your willingness to adapt. Remember, uncertainty isn't the enemy. It's simply a part of life, and it's up to us to decide how we respond. When you embrace the unknown, you're not just surviving, you're thriving, one unpredictable moment at a time. How often does the pursuit of perfection hold you back? It's a question worth sitting with, because in our quest to get things just right, we often miss the opportunity to actually do them. The Stoics had a refreshingly grounded perspective on this. They didn't see imperfection as a failure, they saw it as an essential part of being human. Epictetus once said, "No great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen." Progress, not perfection, was the goal. Think about it. When you aim for perfection, you're setting yourself up for frustration. Why? Because perfection is an illusion. It's a moving target that keeps you stuck in a cycle of overthinking and hesitation. Instead, the Stoics would encourage you to focus on what's within your control, your effort, your attitude, and your willingness to move forward, even when things aren't flawless. Here's a practical example. Imagine you're working on a project. Maybe it's a presentation, a piece of art, or even a personal goal. You've put in the work, but it's not perfect. There's a part of you that wants to keep tweaking it, refining it, polishing it until it shines. But what if, instead of chasing that unattainable ideal, you decided to call it done? What if you accepted that it's good enough, not perfect, but good enough, and moved on? That's progress, that's growth, and that's where real satisfaction lies. So take a moment to reflect. What's one thing in your life right now where you're clinging to perfection? What could you release just a little to make space for progress instead? Maybe it's a project, a relationship, or even your own expectations of yourself. Letting go of perfectionism doesn't mean settling for mediocrity. It means embracing the beauty of imperfection and trusting that, step by step, you're moving forward. And isn't that what truly matters? Every choice shapes your character. This is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, reminding us that every decision, no matter how small, contributes to the person we become. The Stoics placed immense importance on mindful decision-making, choosing deliberately and thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic thinkers, often reflected on this in his writings. He urged himself and others to align every action with their core values, to act with intention rather than being swept away by fleeting emotions or external pressures. Consider this: you're faced with a choice between staying up late to binge watch a show or going to bed early to wake up refreshed for an important day ahead. On the surface, it might seem trivial, but Stoicism teaches us that these small moments are where our character is forged. By choosing the path that aligns with your long-term goals, like prioritizing rest over instant entertainment, you're not just making a decision, you're practicing self-discipline and reinforcing your values. This principle applies to larger decisions as well. Whether it's a career move, a relationship choice, or even how you respond to criticism, Stoicism encourages us to pause, reflect, and ask, does this align with who I want to be? It's about taking a step back from the noise of the world and tuning into your inner compass. So, how can you make more mindful decisions today? Start by asking yourself two simple questions. What values am I honoring with this choice? And what kind of person will this decision help me become? By grounding your decisions in these reflections, you'll not only act more intentionally, but also build a life that reflects your deepest principles. Every choice, no matter how small, is an opportunity to strengthen your character. What will you choose? Do you see challenges as threats or opportunities? The way you answer that question says a lot about your mindset and your potential for growth. Stoicism teaches us that life's obstacles aren't roadblocks, they're stepping stones. The Stoics believed in continuous self-improvement, in using every experience, good or bad, as a chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. As Epictetus once said, the greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. Think about that for a moment. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to rise above your current limits and discover what you're truly capable of. Let's take something many people struggle with: public speaking. For some, the thought of standing in front of a crowd is paralyzing, but what if you reframed it? Instead of seeing it as a threat, what if you saw it as an opportunity to grow? Every time you step up to speak, you're building confidence, honing your skills, and proving to yourself that you can handle discomfort. That's the essence of a growth mindset. It's not about avoiding fear or failure. It's about embracing them as part of the journey. So, where in your life can you start applying this mindset? Maybe it's a skill you've been avoiding because it feels intimidating. Maybe it's a relationship that's challenging you to be more patient or understanding. Or perhaps it's a goal that seems just out of reach. Whatever it is, try shifting your perspective. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this challenge help me grow? The Stoics remind us that growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens when we lean into difficulty and come out stronger on the other side. Humility is the foundation of wisdom, and for the Stoics, it was a cornerstone of personal growth. Think about it. How can you truly learn, adapt, or improve if you're convinced you already know everything? Humility opens the door to self-awareness and the ability to see the world and yourself with clear eyes. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, warned against the dangers of arrogance. He believed that pride blinds us to our flaws and limits our potential. In his letters, he often reminded his readers that no matter how much we achieve or how high we climb, we're all just human, imperfect, fallible, and always learning. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you're at work and you make a mistake. Maybe you misjudged a project deadline or overlooked a key detail. It's tempting to brush it off or shift the blame, but humility allows you to own that error, learn from it, and move forward with greater insight. That moment of admitting you were wrong. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a mark of strength. It shows you're willing to grow. So how can you cultivate greater humility in your daily life? Start by actively listening to others, even when their perspectives challenge your own. Remind yourself that no matter how much you know, there's always more to learn. And when you stumble, because you will treat it as an opportunity to grow rather than a blow to your ego. Humility isn't about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking of yourself less. And in doing so, you create space for wisdom to flourish. How often do you find yourself tangled in the tiny details of life, losing sight of what truly matters? It's easy to get caught up in the small stuff, whether it's a minor inconvenience, a fleeting argument, or a temporary setback. But Stoicism teaches us to step back and see the bigger picture. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most renowned Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that so much of what we worry about is, in the grand scheme, insignificant. Think about it. When you're stuck in traffic or someone cuts you off in line, does it really matter a week from now? A month, a year, probably not. Yet in the moment, those small frustrations can feel overwhelming. The Stoic practice of zooming out helps us regain perspective. It's about asking ourselves, will this matter in the long run? If the answer is no, then why let it consume your energy? Here's a practical example. Imagine you've been working on a project for weeks and it doesn't turn out the way you hoped. It's natural to feel disappointed, even frustrated, but instead of dwelling on what went wrong, take a step back. Ask yourself, what's the bigger goal here? What can I learn from this experience? By shifting your focus to the broader purpose, you can turn a setback into an opportunity for growth. So, how can you start applying this mindset shift today? Next time you're faced with a challenge, big or small, pause for a moment. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what's the bigger picture here? When you focus on what truly matters, the smaller concerns tend to fade into the background. It's not about ignoring the details, it's about not letting them overshadow your vision and purpose. Giving is a form of self-enrichment. At first glance, this might sound counterintuitive. How can giving something away, whether it's time, resources, or energy, leave us feeling fuller rather than emptier? But this is exactly what the Stoics believed. Generosity, in their view, isn't just an act of kindness toward others. It's a profound way to cultivate inner peace and fulfillment. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught that true joy comes not from accumulating wealth or possessions but from helping others. He believed that when we give freely, we align ourselves with the natural order of the universe, which thrives on interconnectedness and mutual support. Think about it this way: when you volunteer your time at a local shelter or donate to a cause you care about, you're not just helping someone else, you're also reinforcing your own sense of purpose. These acts remind us that we're part of something larger than ourselves. They shift our focus away from what we lack and toward what we can contribute. And in doing so, they free us from the endless cycle of wanting more. Generosity then becomes a practice of gratitude, a way to acknowledge the abundance we already have by sharing it with others. Consider this: if you've ever volunteered at a community event or simply helped a friend in need, you've likely noticed how good it feels afterward. That sense of warmth and satisfaction isn't just a fleeting emotion, it's a reflection of the Stoic idea that giving enriches the giver as much as the receiver. It's a reminder that our happiness isn't tied to what we own, but to how we choose to live and connect with others. So, how can you practice generosity in your daily life? It doesn't have to be grand gestures. Maybe it's offering your time to listen to a friend who's struggling, or donating to a local charity, or even sharing your skills with someone who could benefit from them. The key is to give without expecting anything in return, to let go of the need for recognition or reward. In doing so, you'll find that generosity isn't just about helping others, it's about transforming yourself, one act of kindness at a time. How comfortable are you with being alone? It's a question that might make some of us pause. In a world that constantly pulls us toward noise, distractions, and the endless buzz of social interaction, the idea of solitude can feel uncomfortable, even intimidating. But for the Stoics, solitude wasn't something to fear. It was a powerful tool for self-reflection and clarity. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." And part of living courageously, he believed, is learning to embrace moments of quiet and stillness. Solitude offers a rare opportunity to step back from the demands of daily life and reconnect with yourself. It's a space where you can untangle your thoughts, examine your values, and gain clarity about what truly matters. Think about the last time you were truly alone, not just physically, but mentally unplugged from the noise of the world. What did you notice? What did you learn? For many of us, these moments can feel uncomfortable at first, but they often lead to profound insights and a deeper understanding of who we are. Here's a practical way to start embracing solitude. Take a solo walk. Leave your phone behind, or at least put it on silent, and let yourself be fully present in the experience. Notice the rhythm of your steps, the sounds around you, and the thoughts that arise. You don't need to force anything or come up with grand revelations. Simply allow yourself to be with your own mind. Over time, you might find that this quiet time becomes a source of strength, a way to recharge and refocus. So, what insights can you gain from spending time alone? It might be a chance to process emotions, reevaluate priorities, or even discover new ideas that had been buried under the noise of everyday life. Solitude isn't about isolation, it's about creating space to listen to your inner voice. And in that space, you might just find the clarity you've been searching for. Attachment is the root of suffering. This isn't just a philosophical statement. It's a truth that has echoed through centuries, from ancient Stoic teachings to modern mindfulness practices. The Stoics understood that clinging too tightly to outcomes, possessions, or even relationships often leads to disappointment, frustration, and pain. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it plainly: freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. In other words, true peace comes when we learn to let go. Think about it: how often do we tie our happiness to things outside our control? We might obsess over a promotion, fixate on a relationship, or even feel a deep sense of loss when material possessions are taken away. But the Stoic approach invites us to shift our perspective. It's not about rejecting these things or living a life of indifference. It's about recognizing their impermanence and not letting them dictate our emotional state. Imagine this: you've just lost your job. It's a blow, no doubt, and it's natural to feel upset. But what if, instead of spiraling into despair, you paused and asked yourself, what can I control here? You can't change the fact that the job is gone, but you can choose how you respond. Maybe this is an opportunity to explore a new path to grow or to redefine what success means to you. By practicing non-attachment to the outcome, you free yourself from the weight of expectations and open the door to new possibilities. Relationships are another area where non-attachment can be transformative. Love deeply but don't cling. People change, circumstances shift, and sometimes relationships end. That doesn't diminish their value or the joy they brought. It simply means we accept their impermanence and focus on what we can control: our own actions, intentions, and how we choose to move forward. So here's a question to reflect on. What can you practice detaching from to find greater peace? Is it a specific goal, a material possession, or even a relationship dynamic? The act of letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop allowing external things to control your inner world. And in that space of non-attachment, you'll find a freedom that no outcome or possession can ever provide. What fears are holding you back? Think about that for a moment. Fear can be paralyzing, stopping us from taking risks, pursuing goals, or even speaking up when it matters most. But here's the thing: Stoicism teaches us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to act despite it. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the very obstacles we fear are often the very things that help us grow stronger. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're in a meeting at work and you have an idea that could improve a project, but you're hesitant to share it because you're afraid of being judged or dismissed. That moment of hesitation is where courage comes into play. Speaking up, even when it feels uncomfortable, is an act of bravery. It's not about guaranteeing success. It's about valuing your voice and your ideas enough to take the risk. Now think about your own life. Where are you holding back because of fear? Maybe it's standing up for yourself in a difficult relationship, taking the first step toward a new career, or even just having a tough conversation you've been avoiding. Courage doesn't always mean grand, heroic gestures. Sometimes it's the small, everyday choices that require the most strength. So how can you act with courage in your daily life? Start by identifying one fear that's been holding you back. Then take just one small step toward facing it. Remember, courage is a muscle. It grows stronger with use. And as the Stoics remind us, every challenge we face is an opportunity to practice this virtue. What will you do today to cultivate courage? Forgiveness is a gift to yourself. Think about it: holding onto anger or resentment is like carrying a heavy weight wherever you go. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that harboring grudges doesn't punish the other person, it only harms you. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it plainly: anger is a waste of energy. It doesn't solve the problem or change the past. Instead, it traps you in a cycle of negativity, draining your peace and clarity. Let's take a real-life example. Imagine a close friend cancels plans last minute again. You might feel hurt or frustrated, and it's easy to let that simmer into resentment. But here's the Stoic perspective. What if you chose to forgive them instead? Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to let go of the weight. By forgiving, you reclaim your emotional freedom. You're not excusing their behavior. You're simply refusing to let it control your inner peace. So, who can you forgive today to free yourself from resentment? Maybe it's a coworker who made a mistake, a family member who said something hurtful, or even yourself for a past decision. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting or condoning. It's about releasing the grip of negativity so you can move forward with clarity and strength. As the Stoics would say, your peace of mind is too valuable to sacrifice to anger. Why not choose forgiveness and lighten your load? How often do you find yourself obsessing over the end goal, only to feel frustrated or overwhelmed when it seems out of reach? It's a common trap, fixating on the prize while ignoring the steps it takes to get there. But here's the Stoic mindset shift that can change everything. Focus on the process, not the prize. The Stoics believed that true fulfillment comes from the effort itself, not just the outcome. As Epictetus once said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In other words, the value lies in the work you put in, the lessons you learn, and the person you become along the way. Think about training for a marathon. If you're only focused on crossing the finish line, every run might feel like a chore. But if you shift your attention to the daily practice, how your body grows stronger, how your mind becomes more disciplined, how each mile teaches you something new, the journey becomes just as rewarding as the destination. The process itself transforms you, and that's where the real magic happens. So how can you apply this mindset to your own life? Start by asking yourself, what's one goal you're working toward, and how can you find joy in the steps it takes to get there? Maybe it's learning a new skill, building a business, or even improving a relationship. Instead of fixating on the end result, celebrate the small victories, the effort you're putting in, and the growth you're experiencing. When you focus on the process, you'll find that the journey becomes its own reward, and the prize, when it comes, is just the cherry on top. Shift 30 brings us to a powerful Stoic mindset shift, the practice of contentment. Contentment, as the Stoics teach us, doesn't come from external circumstances, it comes from within. This might sound counterintuitive in a world that constantly pushes us to chase more money, more success, more possessions. But Stoicism invites us to pause and ask ourselves, is this endless pursuit truly making me happier, or am I overlooking the peace that's already within my grasp? Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most famous practitioners, often reflected on this idea. He wrote about finding inner peace by focusing on what we can control, our thoughts, our attitudes, and our responses to the world around us. He reminded himself that even in the chaos of ruling an empire, true satisfaction wasn't found in power or wealth, but in cultivating a calm and grateful mind. In his words, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Let's bring this down to earth with a simple example. Think about the last time you enjoyed a quiet moment. Maybe it was a warm cup of coffee in the morning, a walk in nature, or a heartfelt conversation with a friend. These moments often bring a sense of fulfillment, not because they're extravagant, but because they allow us to appreciate the present. Stoicism teaches us to find joy in these small, everyday experiences, rather than waiting for some grand external achievement to make us feel whole. So, how can you start practicing contentment today? Take a moment to reflect on what you already have. What are the simple pleasures in your life that you might be taking for granted? Maybe it's the comfort of a safe home, the support of loved ones, or even the ability to take a deep breath and pause. Contentment isn't about settling for less, it's about recognizing the abundance that's already here right now. What's one thing you can do today to shift your focus inward and cultivate greater satisfaction in your life? What gives your life meaning? This question isn't just philosophical, it's deeply practical, especially when we consider the Stoic approach to living. The Stoics believed that a life without purpose is like a ship without a rudder, drifting aimlessly in the vast ocean. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. In other words, time is precious, and how we choose to spend it determines the quality of our lives. So how do we invest our time meaningfully? It starts by aligning our actions with our values. For instance, if you value creativity and helping others, pursuing a career in the arts or education might give your work deeper significance. Or if you prioritize family, dedicating more time to nurturing those relationships could bring a profound sense of fulfillment. Purpose isn't about grand gestures. It's about making intentional choices that resonate with who you are and what you stand for. But here's the challenge. Life often pulls us in countless directions, and it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. That's why the Stoics emphasize self-reflection. Take a moment to ask yourself, are the things you're investing your energy in truly aligned with your values? If not, what small changes could you make to live more purposefully? Remember, purpose isn't something you find, it's something you create, one intentional decision at a time. Listening is an act of respect and understanding. It's not just about hearing words, but truly absorbing what someone is saying, their thoughts, emotions, and intentions. The Stoics placed immense value on mindful listening because they saw it as a way to deepen connections and foster harmony in relationships. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, emphasized the importance of clear and thoughtful communication. He believed that by listening attentively, we not only show respect for others but also gain clarity and wisdom from their perspectives. Think about a time when a simple misunderstanding escalated because someone wasn't truly listening. Maybe a friend shared a concern, but you were distracted by your own thoughts, or a colleague explained an idea, but you were already formulating your response. These moments happen to all of us, and they highlight how easily miscommunication can arise when we don't give our full attention. Mindful listening is about being present, setting aside your own agenda, judgments, or distractions to truly engage with the person speaking. So, how can you become a better listener in your daily interactions? Start by practicing patience. Resist the urge to interrupt or jump to conclusions. Instead, focus on what the other person is saying, and when they finish, take a moment to reflect before responding. This small shift in approach can transform conversations, turning them into opportunities for mutual understanding rather than sources of conflict. Mindful listening also involves empathy. Try to see the situation from the other person's perspective, even if you don't immediately agree. By doing so, you create a space where others feel heard and valued, which strengthens trust and connection. The Stoics remind us that communication isn't just about expressing ourselves, it's about creating a bridge between minds. When you listen with intention, you honor that bridge, paving the way for deeper, more meaningful relationships. How do you respond when life throws an unexpected curveball your way? Change is one of the few constants in life, yet it's something many of us resist, often out of fear or discomfort. The Stoics, however, saw change as a natural part of existence, something to be embraced rather than fought against. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it." What he's reminding us here is that transformation is not only inevitable but also a fundamental aspect of how the world works. The key lies not in resisting it, but in shaping our mindset to flow with it. Think about a major life shift like moving to a new city. At first, it might feel overwhelming. New surroundings, unfamiliar faces, a different rhythm to life. But within that change lies opportunity, the chance to grow, to learn, and to see the world through a fresh lens. The Stoic approach isn't about pretending the transition is easy. It's about acknowledging the discomfort while focusing on what you can control, your attitude, your effort, and your willingness to adapt. So how can you embrace change with greater ease? Start by reframing it. Instead of seeing change as a threat, view it as a teacher. Ask yourself, what can this situation reveal about my strength? How can it help me grow? By shifting your perspective, you transform change from an opponent into an ally. Remember, it's not the event itself that defines your experience, it's how you choose to respond to it. And that's where your power lies. Self-discipline is the key to freedom. At first glance, that might sound like a contradiction. How can restricting yourself lead to liberation? But the Stoics saw self-discipline not as a burden, but as a gateway to inner strength and true autonomy. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, famously said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In other words, freedom isn't about doing whatever you want in the moment. It's about having the power to choose your actions intentionally, rather than being ruled by impulses, desires, or external pressures. Think about it this way: when you give in to every craving or distraction, you're not really free. You're a slave to those urges. But when you exercise self-discipline, you take control. You decide what matters most, and you align your actions with that purpose. For example, imagine you're trying to build a habit of exercising regularly. On the days when you feel tired or unmotivated, it's self-discipline that gets you out the door. And over time, that discipline creates a sense of mastery and confidence, which spills over into other areas of your life. The Stoics believed that mastering your desires, whether it's the urge to overindulge, procrastinate, or react impulsively, is where true power lies. It's not about denying yourself pleasure or living a rigid, joyless life. It's about recognizing what's truly valuable and making choices that reflect those values. So, where in your life could you use a little more self-discipline? Is it in how you manage your time, your health, or even your reactions to challenges? Every small act of discipline is a step toward greater freedom and ultimately a more resilient and intentional way of living. How often do you feel truly at peace? In a world that constantly demands our attention, it's easy to lose sight of that quiet, steady calm within us. The Stoics believed that inner peace wasn't something that happened to us, it was something we had to actively cultivate. Seneca once said, "The mind that is anxious about the future is miserable." He understood that peace isn't found in avoiding challenges, but in mastering our responses to them. Inner tranquility comes from self-awareness and detachment, from learning to let go of what we can't control and focusing on what we can. Think about it this way: imagine your mind as a lake. When the waters are calm, you can see everything clearly, the pebbles at the bottom, the fish swimming by. But when the waters are stirred up, everything becomes cloudy, chaotic. Inner peace is about keeping that lake still, even when life throws rocks into it. One practical way to do this is through daily practices like meditation or journaling. Meditation helps quiet the noise, while journaling allows you to process your thoughts and detach from the emotions that might otherwise overwhelm you. So, what can you do today to cultivate greater inner peace? Start small. Take 5 minutes to sit quietly, breathe deeply, and let go of the thoughts that tug at your attention. Or grab a notebook and write down what's weighing on your mind, not to solve it, but simply to acknowledge it. These small acts of self-care can create ripples of calm that grow over time. Inner peace isn't a destination, it's a practice, a way of living that brings clarity and strength to everything you do. Adversity is a teacher in disguise. It might not feel that way in the moment when you're staring down a challenge or grappling with failure, but every obstacle carries a lesson waiting to be uncovered. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote extensively about the value of hardship. He saw adversity not as something to resent or avoid, but as an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. In his words, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Think about it this way: when life throws a curveball, it's not just testing you, it's shaping you. A personal failure, for instance, might feel like the end of the world at first. Maybe you missed a big opportunity at work, or a relationship didn't work out as you'd hoped. But if you step back and reflect, you'll often find that these moments teach you something invaluable. Perhaps that failure showed you where you need to improve, or it revealed a strength you didn't know you had. Here's a simple example. Imagine you've been passed over for a promotion. It's disappointing, even frustrating, but instead of dwelling on the setback, you could ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Maybe it's a sign to develop new skills, to communicate more effectively, or to take more initiative. By shifting your perspective, you turn what feels like a loss into a stepping stone. So, what lessons have you learned from your struggles? Take a moment to reflect on a time when you faced adversity. What did it teach you about yourself, about others, or about the world? The Stoics believed that gratitude for adversity isn't about denying the pain. It's about recognizing the growth that comes from it. When you start to see challenges as opportunities, you'll find that even the toughest moments have something to offer. And that shift in mindset, it's life-changing. This isn't just philosophy, it's a practical tool for living. By practicing gratitude for adversity, you transform obstacles into allies. You stop seeing them as barriers and start seeing them as bridges to becoming the best version of yourself. And that's a mindset shift worth embracing. How often do you find yourself juggling multiple tasks at once, only to realize you've lost focus on what truly matters? In today's fast-paced world, multitasking has become a badge of honor, but the Stoics would argue it's a recipe for distraction. They believed that true strength lies in giving your full attention to the task right in front of you. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, once said, "If you seek tranquility, do less." Or more accurately, do what's essential and do it well. This isn't about doing more, it's about doing better. Think about it. When was the last time you truly immersed yourself in a single task without letting your mind wander? Maybe it was a work assignment, a creative project, or even a conversation with a loved one. The Stoics remind us that every moment is an opportunity to practice presence. By focusing entirely on what you're doing, you not only improve the quality of your work but also cultivate a sense of calm and control. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you're working on a report for your job. Instead of trying to answer emails, check notifications, and brainstorm ideas all at once, what if you dedicated a specific block of time to just the report? You might find that your thoughts flow more clearly, your ideas are sharper, and the final product is far more polished. This is the Stoic approach: one task, one moment, one step at a time. So how can you apply this to your own life? Start by identifying areas where your attention tends to scatter. Are you trying to do too much at once? Are you letting external distractions pull you away from what's important? The Stoics would encourage you to pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, am I fully present in this moment, or am I letting my mind race ahead? By focusing on the present task, you're not just getting more done, you're living with intention, and that's where true progress begins. Others' opinions are not your reality. This is a truth the Stoics held close to their hearts, and it's a mindset shift that can profoundly change how you navigate the world. The Stoics believed that your worth isn't tied to what others think of you. Their judgments, whether glowing or harsh, are reflections of their own perceptions, not an objective measure of who you are. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, often warned against the trap of seeking external approval. He argued that living for the applause of others is a never-ending chase, one that leaves you exhausted and disconnected from your own values. Think about it. How often have you let someone else's opinion dictate your mood or decisions? Maybe a coworker criticized your idea, or a friend made an offhand comment that stuck with you longer than it should have. These moments can feel heavy, but they don't have to define you. The Stoic approach is to detach from these external judgments and focus on what's within your control, your own thoughts, actions, and principles. Here's a practical way to apply this. The next time you face criticism, pause and ask yourself, is this opinion based on facts, or is it just a reflection of someone else's perspective? If it's the latter, let it go. You don't need to carry it with you. Imagine holding a pebble in your hand. You can choose to grip it tightly, letting its weight drag you down, or you can open your hand and let it fall. Detaching from others' opinions is like releasing that pebble. It's a conscious choice to free yourself from unnecessary burdens. So, how can you practice this detachment in your own life? Start by reminding yourself daily that your value isn't up for debate. It's not determined by likes, comments, or the approval of others. Instead, it's rooted in your ability to live authentically, guided by your own principles. As you strengthen this mindset, you'll find a sense of inner freedom that no external opinion can shake. When was the last time you marveled at the world around you? It's easy to get caught up in the hustle of daily life, rushing from one task to the next, barely noticing the beauty that surrounds us. But the Stoics understood something profound, that cultivating a sense of wonder is not just a luxury, but a necessity for a fulfilling life. Marcus Aurelius once reflected, "Observe always that everything is the result of a change, and get used to thinking that there is nothing nature loves so well as to change existing forms and to make new ones like them." In this simple observation, he reminds us to see the world with fresh eyes, to appreciate its ever-changing nature, and to find awe in the ordinary. Take a moment to think about something as simple as a sunset. It's something we've all seen countless times, but have you ever stopped to truly take it in? The way the colors shift and blend, the way the light dances across the horizon, the quiet stillness that settles as day turns to night. These moments are fleeting, yet they hold immense beauty if we pause to notice them. The Stoics believed that by cultivating this sense of wonder, we could reconnect with the natural world and, in turn, with ourselves. It's about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, the magic in the mundane. So, how can you bring this practice into your own life? Start small. Maybe it's taking a few minutes each day to step outside and really look at the sky, or noticing the intricate patterns of leaves on a tree. It could be as simple as savoring the taste of your morning coffee or the sound of birdsong outside your window. The key is to slow down, to be present, and to allow yourself to be amazed by the world around you. When you do, you'll find that life becomes richer, more vibrant, and full of meaning. Wonder isn't just something you stumble upon, it's something you choose to cultivate one moment at a time. Life itself is a gift worth cherishing, a truth the Stoics held close to their hearts. One of the most profound mindset shifts you can make is to practice gratitude for the very fact that you exist. The Stoics believed that every moment, every breath, is a fleeting opportunity to engage with the world, to learn, to grow, and to contribute. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, often reminded his students that time is the most precious resource we have, not because it's scarce, but because it's irretrievable. Once a moment passes, it's gone forever, and yet how often do we take this gift for granted? Think about the last time you recovered from an illness. When you were sick, even the simplest tasks felt impossible. But as soon as you were well again, didn't you feel a renewed appreciation for the ability to move, to think clearly, to simply be alive? That's the power of perspective, a reminder that health and life itself are not guaranteed. The Stoics taught us to cultivate this awareness daily, not just in moments of crisis. Gratitude for them wasn't just a feeling, it was a practice, a deliberate choice to acknowledge the beauty and value of existence, even when life feels heavy or uncertain. So, what can you do to appreciate the gift of life more fully? Start small. Take a moment to notice the sunlight streaming through your window or the sound of laughter from a loved one. Reflect on the fact that you're here right now with the ability to experience these things. Gratitude doesn't require grand gestures. It's about finding meaning in the ordinary, recognizing the extraordinary in the mundane. When you anchor yourself in this mindset, challenges feel lighter and joys feel richer. Life, after all, isn't just about what happens to you, it's about how you choose to see it. And when you see it as a gift, everything changes. Over the course of this video, we've explored 40 powerful mindset shifts rooted in Stoic philosophy, each designed to help you overcome obstacles and thrive in the face of life's challenges. From cultivating resilience to embracing gratitude, these principles aren't just abstract ideas, they're practical tools you can use to transform how you approach adversity. At the heart of it all is the Stoic belief that while we can't control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. This shift in perspective is where true power lies. Resilience, presence, and gratitude are more than just buzzwords. They're the cornerstones of a life well lived. Resilience teaches us to stand firm in the face of difficulties. Presence reminds us to focus on the here and now, and gratitude opens our eyes to the abundance already in our lives. These principles aren't just about surviving, they're about thriving, no matter what life throws your way. To leave you with one final thought, let's turn to the words of Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This simple yet profound idea encapsulates the essence of Stoicism. It's not about avoiding hardships, but about mastering your inner world so that no external challenge can shake your peace. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these mindset shifts resonated most with you? How do you plan to apply them in your own life? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always inspired by your stories and insights. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more Stoic wisdom and practical advice. Together, let's continue this journey toward a stronger, more resilient, and more fulfilling life.